Welcome to today's deep dive. If you are someone who just absolutely loves those little aha moments, the ones where surprising facts are, like, hidden in totally unexpected places, well, today is perfectly tailored for you.
It really is. It's one of those topics that starts incredibly small and then just expands into something huge.
Exactly. So imagine stepping into, like a classic locked room mystery. You've got the magnifying glass out, you're dusting the surfaces, looking for those absolute telltale signs to solve the puzzle.
Right, because you expect the evidence to just be there.
Yeah, because in the natural order of things, every action leaves a mark. A fingerprint on a glass, a muddy footprint on the rug.
hmm
The physical world reliably records what happens within it.
There's this fundamental baseline assumption of causality that we just rely on every single day. If somebody touched the glass, well, the oils from their skin are left behind?
The clues inherently exist.
Yes. Your only job as the investigator is just to look closely enough to find them. The system itself is sound. It's really just a matter of your own observational skill.
But what happens if you walk into that room and the person who built the room intentionally designed the glass so it literally cannot hold a fingerprint?
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Right. What if the creator of the environment, deliberately smudged all the evidence before the crime even happened?
Yeah.
How do you solve the mystery when the standard, reliable evidence is just completely broken?
And that is exactly what we are looking at today.
It is. We are jumping into a highly specific, honestly very short snippet from a hobbyist diary that tackles this exact scenario. It's a blog called Notes on Fishkeeping.
A very niche source.
Super niche. Specifically, we're looking at a post titled Part 277, which was published today, actually, June 22, 2026, by an author who just goes by the name Ang.
It's basically a micro-entry, like a tiny window into one person's highly specialized passion.
Right.
And on the surface, the topic is just about identifying the gender of hybrid parrot cichlids, which they are a very common type of aquarium fish.
But our mission today is to extract the really profound insights buried inside this niche log. The broader situation here is exploring how we solve puzzles when human intervention has completely scrambled the natural clues.
Aang is essentially playing the role of the detective here.
Exactly. Trying to solve a very basic biological mystery. Who is male and who is female? And the fingerprints, the natural biological clues, have been wiped completely clean.
So we find Aang out in the field. It's a field trip to an aquarium store, just observing the tanks. And Aang spots a particular bonded pair of white parrot cichlids.
Okay.
And right away, Aang zeroes in on a specific visual cue. The female fish has this orangish pigmentation right at her tail.
Which makes sense, because for anyone who spends time observing nature, visual cues are like the primary language.
Oh, totally. We are trained by biology itself to look for patterns.
Right. And Ang notes that historically, this orange tail pigment is the visual cue they've used to confidently identify a female parrot cichlid from a male.
It's the fingerprint.
Yeah, the reliable marker.
But then, in the very next sentence of this diary entry, Aang just casually debunks their own long-held assumption.
Wait, really? Just like that?
Just like that. Aang references an earlier observation, something jotted down back in part 276 of their notes, where they witnessed male fish that also had this exact same orange pigmentation in their tails.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so suddenly, this golden rule, this visual name tag of orange means female, just completely falls apart. Aang writes flat out that this is not a sure trait for accurate identification.
Okay, hold on. I have to challenge the underlying biology of this situation.
Go for it.
If color is supposed to be this reliable biological ID card in nature, and you have a male fish swimming around wearing a female ID card, shouldn't natural selection weed that out immediately?
You would think so, yes.
Because in the wild, if a male looks like a female, it doesn't get recognized as a mate, right? It doesn't reproduce, and that confusing genetic trait just dies out.
Yeah.
So why is this totally inaccurate biological marker surviving?
That is the perfect question. And I have to say, it's great to see Aang applying the scientific method here, in a hobbyist setting, testing an old hypothesis against new data.
It's super impressive.
It is. But to answer your question, if this were a natural ecosystem, you are absolutely right. It would be weeded out. A male displaying female colors would be an evolutionary dead end.
So why isn't it?
The answer lies in the specific fish Aang is observing. These are hybrid parrot cichlids. The word hybrid is the absolute key here.
Meaning they don't exist in the wild.
Exactly. They do not exist anywhere in nature. They are entirely the result of human intervention, bred in captivity. And because they are hybrids, Ang points out that they lack sexual dimorphism.
Right, sexual dimorphism,
Mhm.
which just means the two sexes of the same species don't exhibit like completely different physical characteristics,
Correct.
which we see all the time in nature. Like a male peacock has those massive, brilliant, energy-intensive feathers, while the female peahen is just this camouflaged, earthy brown. Or, a male lion grows a giant mane.
Yeah, in the wild, these distinct physical traits, especially those striking color differences in fish, they are not random at all.
They're a highly engineered language.
Exactly. Natural evolution uses these distinct colors as communication. It's how an organism basically broadcasts, I am a male, I am healthy, I have good genetics, choose me for a mate.
Because producing vibrant colors, like a bright orange tail, that actually requires a massive amount of metabolic energy, right?
Huge amounts. And not only that, it also makes the animal highly visible to predators. So if an animal in the wild is displaying bright colors, it's essentially proving that it's strong enough to survive despite the handicap of being brightly colored.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So every single splash of color has to earn its keep. It has to serve a direct functional purpose for survival or reproduction.
Yes, it's a finely tuned machine where every single part has a specific job.
Yeah.
And if a part stops doing its job, like, say, a male fish displaying female colors, the machine breaks and the trait disappears.
Okay, so then contrast that highly functional evolutionary system with selective breeding.
Right, because selective breeding is driven entirely by human aesthetics. It's driven by what looks appealing under the artificial lights of an aquarium tank in someone's living room.
It's just for us.
Exactly. When humans breed fish for specific, quirky body shapes or vibrant, uniform colors, they are completely bypassing millions of years of evolutionary logic.
Wow.
We're actively selecting for traits that would normally be fatal in the wild simply because we find them visually pleasing.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
So if humans bred these fish purely for aesthetics, it's like we treated their genetics as a blank canvas.
That's a great way to look at it.
We started mixing and matching paint colors just because the consumer market wants a bright orange fish or a stark white fish. And in the process of chasing that perfect living room decoration, we accidentally painted entirely over the natural evolutionary I'm male or I'm female barcodes.
We literally erase the biological data.
That is wild.
Yeah, the scanner cannot read the barcode anymore because the system is just broken. We essentially hijacked a functional communication system and turned it into pure decoration.
But wait, Aang still saw orange on the tail.
Right. The fish might still retain these random, chaotic specks of the original barcode showing through. Aang notes that there are trace amounts of orange or yellow pigments still visible around the fins or the face.
Oh, I see.
And that is exactly why Aang was initially fooled by that orange tail pigment. It looked like a natural signal, but it was actually just biological noise, leftover static from a scrambled genetic code.
Because the visual communicative markers have been completely overridden by human preference.
Precisely.
Okay, but this brings up a huge practical problem. If humans have completely erased the natural color coding, leaving fish keepers totally blind to the gender of the fish from a casual glance across the room, how does someone like Aang actually figure out who is who?
Well, when the primary visual system fails, you need a backup plan. And Aang actually provides two completely different pathways for identifying the gender of these hybrids.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first pathway is essentially a biological fallback. Aang writes, hence, we have to resort to size, elongated fins, and the vent.
The vent being the genital area.
Right. And notice the drastic shift in methodology here. We've gone from just passively observing a bright, flashing color signal from across the room to a process that demands an intense level of physical interaction.
Just thinking about the mechanics of that physical interaction reveals how incredibly tedious it sounds.
Oh, it's awful.
I mean, you have to catch a squirming, slippery animal in a net, pull it out of its environment, hold it still, and inspect minute physical details.
Well, it's probably thrashing around.
Exactly. You're checking if the overall size is slightly larger, examining if the fins are like a millimeter more elongated, and trying to visually inspect the tiny genital vent to determine the sex.
It is the absolute brute force method of detective work. When the neon signs are turned off, you are forced to get out the magnifying glass and examine the microscopic dust fibers.
Which sounds super stressful for the animal.
Extremely stressful. And it is highly prone to human error. I mean, you are asking an observer to rely on relative measurements like elongated fins, on a fish that is already a hybrid.
Right, because Parrot cichlids are heavily modified anyway.
Yeah, their bodies are compressed, their spines are often altered by the breeding process.
So how do you even know what a normal fin length is supposed to look like when the entire organism is basically a genetic patchwork?
You don't really.
We're trying to find subtle anatomical differences on a creature whose anatomy has been artificially warped. It's like trying to accurately measure the dimensions of a funhouse mirror.
That's a perfect analogy. The anatomical data is just corrupted.
Which brings us to the second pathway, which I think is just brilliant.
It really is.
Right after outlining this tedious, error-prone physical inspection, Ang casually tosses out this amazing practical workaround, a behavioral hack.
Yes, Aang writes, of course we can set up an artificial cave and let the dominant fish pair up, which is also the easiest way to identify a pair within a population.
This completely shifts the entire paradigm of how we gather information. Instead of trying to force a physical reading out of the fish, we are using environmental design.
Think about the fundamental difference in these two approaches, you know? The anatomical fallback, measuring fins, checking the vent, is interrogating the organism.
Right.
You are forcing your will onto the subject, demanding it give you physical data it no longer clearly possesses because of what human breeding did to it. You're fighting against the hybrid nature of the fish.
But
so elegant.
it is. In ethology, the study of animal behavior, we know that these behavioral drives are incredibly powerful. A cichlid's instinct to secure a breeding site is hardwired.
So by placing that little plastic cave in the water, you create a space for the answer to just reveal itself. You step back. The dominant male and the female will naturally gravitate to the cave. They'll pair up, and they will aggressively defend that territory from the other fish in the tank.
Yep.
The behavior completely solves the puzzle that the anatomy couldn't. It's the path of least resistance.
And Ang points out that this is the absolute easiest way to identify a pair within a larger population. It requires zero handling, zero stress to the animal, and literally zero guesswork about fin lengths.
Which is such a relief.
Definitely. It relies on a fundamental truth. While physical forms can be easily manipulated by human breeding, ancient behavioral instincts are much, much harder to erase. The behavior does not lie. Okay, bringing it all together for you listening, we started with this simple diary entry about a trip to an aquarium store, observing a white parrot cichlid with an orange tail.
A tiny detail.
A tiny detail. But from that single observation, we uncovered a fascinating lesson. We watched the scientific method unfold as a flawed assumption was tested against new data. We unpacked how human intervention, our desire to selectively breed animals for living room aesthetics, has the power to completely overwrite millions of years of evolutionary signaling.
We essentially eliminate the sexual dimorphism that makes gender identification functional in the wild.
Exactly. And without those visual clues, we are left with a choice. We either resort to brute force anatomical inspections, fighting against the corrupted physical form of the hybrid organism.
Which is terrible for everyone involved.
Right. Or we change our methodology entirely. We use the behavioral hack, we alter the environment, we step back, and we let the unbreakable instincts of the organism answer the question for us.
Because Aang doesn't just look at the fish. Aang understands the history of the animal, the limitations of its altered biology, and how to work with the creature's innate nature rather than fighting against its physical form.
And this is exactly why we do these deep dives, to show that even a highly niche microentry, like part 277 of a fish-keeping log, holds massive aha moments about how to read and interpret the world.
It really makes you look at things differently.
It does. We have seen how easily human intervention and our pursuit of aesthetics can completely erase vital natural signals, like the evolutionary gender markers of a simple aquarium fish. And all just because we like the look of a solid color.
It's sobering, really.
It is. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. If we can so casually wipe away a million-year-old biological language just to make a fish tank look slightly more appealing, what other hidden biological languages or ancient natural signals might we be accidentally silencing in the world around us purely for the sake of our own aesthetics? What other fingerprints are we wiping away without even realizing they were there?